Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Carm Capriato, 12 noon East Coast time, Town Hall Academy. It's number 187. I don't know, Bob or Brian, if you could have imagined when I started this 187 weeks ago that we'd still be here going strong. And I have to tell you something. I only have about 50 more topics to cover. That it's amazing. This industry, you never run out of things to talk about.
And there's more to come.
Unbelievable. Wow. Hey, good to have you all here. As you well know, what else would you be doing on a Friday at noon Eastern or 9 p.m. Pacific than being right here and right now? And don't forget, we are on my YouTube channel, my LinkedIn, a whole bunch of Facebook sites. We'll repurpose this for next Thursday. So glad to have you here. Oh, by the way, what an interesting week we have had. Mike Tadich, 20 questions in 30 minutes came out yesterday. And let me tell you, if you've not listened to one of the 20 in 30 episodes, they are a riot. This past Tuesday, Luke Walker was on about this incredible episode with giving back to his community. So well worth your listen. Great shop owner that decides to pay it forward. Last Friday, I did a live cooking at the grill with my friend Chris Delabella, and ironically, we had some tech difficulties, but we still pulled off a really nice, concise episode. And then just a few weeks ago, one of my favorite episodes of the year so far is this 1970s talking auto repair. That was so much fun. Well, look at, I am here with Business Coaches Lab. I don't think maybe part 6 or 7. I don't remember what it is, but we're here to talk about labor rates, a function of the business, not the market. I'm with Bob Greenwood, AMAM, President and CEO of the Automotive Aftermarket E-Learning Center, and one of our most respected business coaches. Hello, Bob.
Good day, sir. How are you? From the West Coast.
Good to see you. Good to see you, buddy. Brian Gillis is with us, the Chief Strategist at UNet Results. Hello, Brian.
Hey, how are you? How are you?
I am good, man. A time out for our great sponsors here on the podcast. You know, contactless service is key to keeping your bays full while remaining 6 feet apart, and Shopware's completely digital workflow will wow your customers and keep profits up. Now, Tara from Topol's Service Center commented recently, thank God for this amazing cloud-based software during this difficult time. She can't imagine life without it right now, thanks to Carolyn and Team Shopware. Book a demo today at getshopware.com/carm. Can you believe that? And my friends at Shop Marketing Pros, are you tired of your cookie cutter website? Well, it is it bringing you new clients? I think it's something you need to ask yourself, think about each and every week. Let our friends at Shop Marketing Pros create a website that's as unique as your shop. On the web at shopmarketingpros.com. Okay, we're going to talk about labor rates. I have a guest that's going to come on a little later in the show, a shop owner that's got an opinion or three on labor rates and what he does inside of his shop. And I will keep that mystery guest in the queue here for right now because I know you all know him. Guys, let's jump into this because we haven't talked enough about labor rates on the show. We've talked about them, but we've not gotten into some of the mechanical side of it. And I know we're going to bring up some interesting formulas for you all. Brian, let me start with you. Brian, you got to know your true cost of doing business, right?
That's right. So, getting down to what your labor rate should be, for me, I always want to kind of start from, what you want your end results to be, what your desired, say, net profit might be within a year, within a month. But to do that and to kind of figure out what should my labor rate be, my door rate be, you have to know your true cost of doing business. You really have to dig in and know your numbers. You have to know what your total personnel costs are, your operational costs, your payments, your building expenses. And then once you figure that number out, then you can do the math and calculate, where should my labor rate or labor rates be?
Bob, any comment on that? I mean, I know you're, by the way, Bob Greenwood, in my mind, is known as the numbers guy in the industry. I mean, if you need to understand anything about numbers, now he's a great coach overall, but Bob, I'll tell you, so many times I'm on the phone with guys, it's, yeah, you got to go to Greenwood for that. I mean, that's what you're known as, man.
Oh, well, okay. Yeah, it's the labor formulas have changed, and there's still too many shops that are working on one catch-all labor rate, and you can't make your business work that way anymore. The diversity of the new aftermarket is substantial, and it's going to continue to really diversify in the labor component. You need a minimum of 3 labor rates today, minimum. And they need a maintenance rate, a diagnostic rate, and a reflash rate. All have different formulas. I have clients that are now up to 5 different rates. We have a fluid rate, a tire installation rate, et cetera, et cetera. But at least get your shop to those 3 key rates. But to get there, you have to understand the new concepts of how to set labor rates, not to look down the street, but to understand your cost of business. And we call it the cost per build hour. And we have a specific formula for your cost per build hour. And I believe, Carm, you've got a slide there. You have to take your total operating expenses and divide it by your total build hours. Now, your total operating expenses is everything, all wages, including you, all operation expenses, including depreciation. And that's why you take your last year's financial statement, go to look at the accountant's financial statement, and most likely 98% of them use a cost accounting format. You want to change that to what I call a management accounting format, which means you take the technician's wages out as a cost of labor. Anything that the accountant has put in there as a cost of labor on your income statement, you take out and put it down as an operating expense, whether it's freight or anything. So the labor is purely 100% gross profit. So by taking those total operating expenses, you divide it by your total build hours, and that gives you your cost per build hour. And the objective is to come in around $150 to $165 as your cost per build hour. If you're way below that at the 120, 115 range, I can probably bet $100 you don't pay yourself a professional wage out of your company. And when you don't pay a professional wage, in my mind, you're subsidizing your company. And it also changes your resale value of your business when it's not profitable enough. If you're sitting at 180, 190, or even over 200, and I've seen a few of those, you have a productivity problem. And that's got to be addressed. And you may have the wrong labor rate. So understanding your cost is right. Brian is right on. You've got to understand everything about your particular business. Don't look down the street. Understand your business. Then you're going to have a real substance to work with as to where my labor rate should be.
Great slide, Bob. How encouraging for anybody who's watching this right now or will watch it in the future. Just take a screenshot of that. You know what I think I'll do, Bob, is I'll put these slides in the show notes page. Boy, I keep hearing that noise in the background, everyone. I don't know what that noise is, but we'll make sure that these slides are available to everyone in the show notes page. And Bob, what I found out that was interesting, if it's too high, that's not a good thing.
Right. Right. You got a productivity problem, and then we have to go in and examine what is my average build hours per RO. What is the average technician being billed out per day? We have to look at all those things, and we look at the efficiency factor, the site efficiency factor of the operation. And the only real way you can lower your cost per build hour is by increasing the number of hours you bill. And the industry is still stuck on sales and activity versus really talking about and measuring productivity. In our profession today, we are in the build hours business, yet how many shops still work all day trying to make extra gross profit on their commodities, their parts sales? And understanding that is not going to save your business anymore. You can say your sales are up 15% over last year or even 20%. That doesn't mean your net profit went up by that. And your net profit objective is to net 20% of gross sales after paying yourself a professional wage and your team a professional wage. So your cost per build hour comes into everything now.
Interesting. So we are so excited. Our business is up 20%. The activity's off the wall, but we may still be bleeding to death.
Yes. Yes.
Brian, any comment on that?
Yeah, yeah. What Bob said about the productivity is spot on. And when I'm working with shops, they have a door rate, labor rate, what they feel like they're getting. And when you actually do the math and you take the total labor dollars that they sold in a month and then what they're paying out to technicians, they're not anywhere near what they think what their labor rate is. It's really much lower. And so, I think the biggest thing is, like Bob said, you don't want to do what the guy down the street's doing. You have to know your numbers and what it takes for you to be able to hit your net profit goals, just to be able to provide a great business for your customers and for your employees. You just have to really to do the math. And I totally agree with Bob that, there's not just one single labor rate or door rate. It varies. Our labor rate on an oil change isn't what it is on when we're doing a timing belt, and you've got diesels and RVs and flashing and reprogramming, and you've got an employee rate, and so all of those things go in. You have to really look back over your last 3 months, and you're constantly you may need to tweak that. You may need to look at that and go, you know what, I need to increase my labor rate because we're really not getting what I've intended on, right? So when you're writing your budget and figuring out what your true cost of doing business is, are you factoring in coupons and discounts and sometimes, unfortunately warranty work and things of that nature role in what your outcome's going to be. And so it's you have to be the numbers, your part markup, what you charge for parts, affects your overall, gross profit, your overall margins. That also goes hand in hand with what you set your labor rate at. So you definitely have to know your very own numbers, what's going on inside the market. It's really what's going on inside your four walls that's going to help you to determine where that number is. And then once you kind of decide, hey, this is kind of what I need to, how I need to end the month for the hours that I'm paying my technicians. This is what I need to collect for each one to be able to maintain a great business. That's just some of the thought process and some of the work that needs to go into to really calculate that. When you figure it out, I think each month, you should have, it should tier up. Maybe it's 50 cents every month you raise your labor rate to go along with increased costs in doing business and things of that nature.
We're in the labor business, and I think when that finally hits us hard, then I think we stop and then we start getting the support and the help that we need. Bob, you want to cover that second slide that you brought? I mean, it is an unbelievably another really good slide that I'd like to show.
Yeah, it's how to set your labor rates today. There's mathematical formulas now, and these math formulas are critical. There used to be basically one set formulas, and that was taking your technicians' basic hourly wage, your top technicians' basic hourly wage before benefits and all that, and you would multiply it by 4.5 to come up with your maintenance rate. And that was a very key formula. Now, these formulas have been changing over the years as the complexity of our business goes and the investment that's required to make things work. When I first came into the industry over 40 years ago, the multiple was 1.7. So we're up to 4.5 now. And as we move forward, the knowledge base of your business is going to grow substantially. The new and additional way of looking at it is based on your cost per billed hour. Now, don't jump into that one right away, because you want to understand your cost per billed hour, what the average is. And so you want to make sure you'll first calculate what it was last year for the entire year. But as you move into this year, give yourself a good 6 months worth of data and look at your year to date cost per billed hour.
So you got to understand this slide first. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that is exactly right. That is
Okay.
where it all starts from.
Yep.
So when you understand that, then you can move forward. But you're always working with your average, and that's why your year to date is critical. Not a given month. A month is a snapshot in time, and your cost per build hour can fluctuate on a monthly basis up and down. So that's why we look at the year to date average. So what you do is, once I've got a consistent cost per build hour within $1, $2, year to date, up and down, I then take that for my maintenance rate and multiply it by 85%. And that becomes my maintenance labor rate. Now, notice that the only way I can reduce my cost per build hour is by increasing the number of hours that we bill in the shop. That is the efficiency of your business. And understanding your efficiency of your business is huge today. Site efficiency measurement is critical, because it's going to actually work out where you're sitting at. Now, I'll just make this as a side point. The average shop in North America is coming in between 58 and 63% site efficiency, because the industry doesn't talk about it. They don't even really know how to measure it properly. But that being said, I've got to get to a minimum of 75% site efficiency, with my ultimate goal being 80%. And when you're at that 75 to 80% site efficiency, your cost per build hour is going to be in line. When you're way below that efficiency number, your cost per build hour is going to be up. So the maintenance door rate is one multiple. Then you move to the diagnostic rate. Well, there we take the top technicians' basic hourly wage, and we multiply that by 5.35. And I'm suggesting and recommending to you, you first start with these multiples versus your cost per build hour, because you've got to get some history on your cost per build hour. So that is something that you can work on, and over the next 6 months, fine tune.
Let me ask you, let me stop you. So
Yep.
you're telling everyone, until you really understand cost per build hour and you play with that over time and you keep working it, don't add cost per build hour factor to this slide.
Correct.
Okay, which is that question. That's the 125% times your CPBH.
Right.
Be careful of that right now. Now, what would I multiply it by?
You take your top technician's basic hourly wage and multiply it by 5.35.
Okay. So
that gives you your diagnostic rate.
So there's really two formulas in each one of these quads here.
That's correct.
Right? There's two
formulas.
That is
correct.
I
Two
got
separate formulas.
Okay,
Absolutely.
thank you. All right.
Absolutely. And, the diagnostic rate is a higher multiple because you don't have any commodities contributing to that time. Diagnostic time is any time you analyze or interpret information. And those are two words your entire team has to understand clearly. And you know where you don't charge out? You don't charge out when you're taking out the vehicle for a test drive. You're actually analyzing the vehicle on a test drive. That 10 or 15 minutes should be going out at diagnostic billing. Your staff don't take a wage reduction. Why are you giving it away free of charge? You're in a knowledge-based business, and it's going to grow. So we've got to cover to make sure that on our formulas, we're building in a return on investment into the business, leading to a 20% net profit of gross sales, and overall a 35% return on investment within the business each year. Average shop right now is averaging between 9 and 11% ROI, because they're not as profitable as they should be. And one of the profitability issues is not understanding your cost per build hour and where your labor rate should be. The third rate is a reflash rate. And the reflash rate, you take your top technician's basic hourly wage and multiply it by 6. And the reason, again, there's a difference here is because in reflash, you have subscription fees you've got to get involved with and pay. Once you have your cost per build hour, you take your cost per build hour and multiply it by 135% to get your reflash rate. Now, interesting enough, if you start to look at all these formulas, your cost per build hour is a key one. And your cost per build hour reflects your efficiency of your business. Now think about that. If I'm inefficient, my cost per build hour is going to be a lot higher. If I'm very efficient, my cost per build hour is going to be lower. And if you think that through, you can have a professional wage for yourself, a professional wage for your entire team. And if you're efficient, You can have a very competitive labor rate in the marketplace, but you have to understand your numbers inside out today. These guidelines will lead you to the right ROI in your business. They change. We have to redo the math constantly. I'm doing it a minimum of twice a year just to see where things are based on the realities. And as we move forward here, a lot is going to change in the labor component.
You just said something so big and powerful. You can have a competitive labor rate if you're efficient.
Correct.
And do you want to have a competitive labor rate?
Or do
you want to have one indicative to the value and the customer experience that you have and just make some extra money?
I want to have my labor rate reflect my competency of our team. And that is the important point to understand. So it's not, you're not basing it on a market value. You're basing it on the competency of your team. If you have a very competent team, your labor rates will be higher than anybody else if you're very competent, because you're paying higher hourly wages to your team, especially your top tech. So you're going to have a higher labor rate. So what I'm saying here is that stop looking at the marketplace. And Brian mentioned that too. It's about your business. And here's this little simple math. Understanding your cost per build hour is one thing. Understanding your multiples is one thing. The other thing you want to understand is what is your average build hours per RO. Now let's keep it simple. Let's say I'm at 2.0 build hours per RO. I'm going to raise my labor rate $10. How much are you asking from your client? Well, 2 hours per RO times $10 is an extra $20. That's all I'm asking for the total of the invoice. Yet I hear shops, I can't raise my rate by $10. I can't raise my rate by $15. Do the math. What value proposition do you bring to the table? And your labor rate reflects the value you bring, the competency you have within your team. It's all very doable. The most I've raised a shop overnight is $35 overnight. And in 30 days, he had one question about it. He fired the customer who questioned him because his clients didn't even care. That's what you need to do it right. I trust you. And that's our business today. You're not going to let the person down. You're not going to let your clients down. They trust you. They're not questioning you on your labor rate. They're saying, when can I get it in? When can I get it back? Thank you. That's the relationship you're in.
Okay, Bob, thank you for that. This was a phenomenal lesson, a math lesson, but it's all steeped in common sense and logic in my mind. Let's just take a quick break. Hey, are you tired of your cookie cutter website? Does it look like everyone else's? You know what a cookie cutter is. Is it bringing you new clients? I think you have to think about that. Let my friends at Shop Marketing Pros create a website that is as unique as your shop. Call Kim and Brian and visit them at shopmarketingpros.com on the web. Hey, my friends at Shopware, oh my, they know that now more than ever, you're focused on bringing cars through your bays safely and efficiently. Shopware's shop management system offers a completely contactless workflow. Your customers can review, approve, and even pay for the repairs right from their smartphone. Get a demo. How about this URL, guys? Get shopware.com/Carm. I have my own page at Shopware. You know, maybe I made it now as a podcaster. Who the heck knows, right? Wow. You know, I've got my friend hidden in the background here. In a moment, I'm going to bring him on. But Bob, a question: how many diagnostic hours should we bill in relation to maintenance hours? You got a stat?
Oh, yes. And that's another key stat to measure in your business, because I find that most shops are way below where they should be because they haven't captured the time or taught the team how to capture the time properly so that they can bill it accurately at a diagnostic rate. Today, and I'm talking about 2020 and moving into about June, July 2021, it will start to change. You should be obtaining 25% of your maintenance hours as additional diagnostic hours. So keep it simple. If you're doing 100 hours of maintenance billing in a month, you should have on top of that another 25 hours in diagnostic billing today. I find that too many shops are down around the 5 to 8% range. Some shops don't even capture it at all. And so therefore they're not billing out the diagnostic hours. But you've got to understand, as we move forward, there's going to be more diagnostic billing based on the vehicle itself and the complexity of it. Remember, diagnostic billing is any time you interpret or analyze information on the vehicle. So you could be analyzing the GM or OE website as to what is required. That means you're analyzing or you're interpreting their information so that you can come up with a solution. As I said earlier, test driving, you're analyzing. You're taking a scope, you're analyzing. You've got to capture that time separately so it can be billed accurately.
Thank you for that. Brian, bring you in here about matrices. What kind of advice can you give us on labor matrices?
Yeah, so labor matrices, a lot of the software management systems that are out there have it built where as you charge more hours per job, it'll scale up your labor rate, and just kind of basically, I like to see my shops that I work with have something like that in place so that, it helps them to better achieve a stronger, labor rate that they're collecting for every hour that they do. And also kind of wanted to just kind of add to what Bob said. I also believe that shops don't charge enough for the time that they're spending testing these vehicles and determining failures, whether it's pressure testing a system or smoke test, or, you're cleaning off an engine or an area of the car in an effort to pinpoint a leak, and or road testing a car. All of that's your time for your employees, and a lot of shops just aren't charging for that. And so I think there's some loss there. And so I just to kind of agree with what Bob said on the diagnostic front, that, 25 to 100 ratio is what everybody should kind of target for with in regards to maintenance to diagnostics. But yeah, there's some software management systems out there that will help you with multipliers. And so if you do 1 hour, maybe say it's $89 per hour, and then you do 2 hours, it automatically will scale it up and bump it up a percentage. At 3 hours, it'll bump it up, another percentage. Some of them can be linear. You can preset that so that, for your advisors, when they're billing out tickets, it automatically will scale it up for you on the labor that you collect for each job, your total job. So I find that a helpful tool to stay on top of things, and that helps also with a lot of the coupons that we put out there for the customers as well, to attract them to our business, and helps with discounts and that lost time that we don't always capture.
Thanks so much, Brian. Hey, I just want to remind everyone to please give us a like, give us a comment, at least, write up in the comment box what city you're checking in from, and share this with friends. There's no doubt that more and more people need to hear and understand all about labor rates. Hey, I want to bring on a friend here. I think a friend to me and to everyone here. His name is Bill Nalu.
Hey, Billy.
Gentlemen, good afternoon.
Hey, Bill, thanks for coming on. Bill and I I picked up the phone this morning. I wanted to see if he got up early enough. And I called Bill and I said, I'm going in the ring with Bob and Brian. And I just want to know, what are you doing with labor rates, matrices, and, efficiencies and stuff? He had something very interesting to say. And Bill, I want you to share the story you told me about how the techs are driving that labor program in your place.
Yeah. Let me just say first, when you called me and you asked me to be on a numbers podcast with a Bob Greenwood, let alone Brian, it's intimidating because, as you gentlemen know, numbers don't drive me. And as I'm hearing Bob talk about those formulas, Of course, they're valid and they are measuring sticks by which we have to run our businesses. But I think to myself, what is that $300,000, $400,000 shop doing right now that's struggling to make it? How do we get them to see the value of this formula if we can't get them past their view of themselves, which incidentally projects their view, their sense of shame and what they are worth? And it's amazing how that bleeds into the employees. It's amazing how it bleeds into the customers that they attract into the shop.
Yeah.
And that's really where my contribution lies, in that we have to push back on this nonsensical idea. I've said this on so many different occasions. I decided years ago to be the cheapest guy in town. And I speak to shop owners all the time, and I sort of egg them on, and I say, who here isn't afraid to be the most expensive guy in town? And a bunch of guys like me raise up their hands proudly, And I'm like, why do you think you're the most expensive guy in town? I have the highest prices in town, but I'm the cheapest. I do the best work with the best people. All three of my technicians have been with me for over 10 years. I don't have a technician fighting it out with the service manager who used to be a tech, who's worn out now, who's going to tell the tech that's working on the vehicle how much we're going to charge because, I don't know, some book told him what that was going to be. Never mind about the cross member that's going to take us 2 hours to pull off. So this kind of stuff. And so what I tell my technicians is, you decide what you want for this job, and then you're going to stick by it. And if you underprice it, then we're going to stick with that. We're not going back to the well. I'm not calling this customer a second, third time, buddy. You're going to tell me what it's going to cost, and don't you dare get me in trouble. If that customer, if we can't justify it, if you don't have the pictures, and if you don't have a report worthy of the gap that you want, then you and I don't deserve to be in business, let alone get this job. And so the story I was telling Carm is, I had a fleet account that we deal with ask me about something. We had a labor bump. I think we had twice the labor that we had in there, and it's an older vehicle. We're in Michigan. There's rust. And this guy starts to browbeat me on this. And I asked him, I said to him, let me ask you something. I think his name was Joe. I said, you're probably a former tech, right? He said, yeah. I said, I did that for 30 years. I'm an ASE master. I said, do you think there's many of you guys left out here? And we get to chatting about this. 5 years ago, we were talking about half the technicians that are 50 and up are going to be out. They're out now. And what we have left is the guys that are just barely hanging on, and the guys that we're willing to bring on. And I'm going to sit here and I'm going to have a conversation with somebody who's an industry brother of mine over why we're not worth $25 more an hour for this job. And so we have to be courageous enough to say, this is what we deserve, and we are cheaper than the guy that is going to cost you. This vehicle that's sitting in this parking lot, while you and I are arguing over this, Joe, this vehicle has a $500 a day downtime. They're not replacing this with a U-Haul truck anytime soon. And so we have to be courageous enough to have this conversation, not with just those fleet people. We have to have them with fellow industry brothers and sisters. We've got to remind them what we're worth. We work on the most complicated consumer product man has ever created. And we don't make as much money as somebody who replaces a water heater on a house, not to disparage what plumbers do. We do plumbing too, in the middle of something that's got to go 150 miles an hour down the street. So maybe, I don't know what else you can say about that.
A very, very good rant, my friend, and all also true. Let's talk about what you told me this morning. The techs are the driver of the labor.
Yeah, the technician tells the service writer, who, by the way, if he's a former technician, that's one thing. But I would rather have somebody that isn't going to question the technician. If I have to trust my technician to tell me whether he needs twice the labor time on something or 3 times the labor time on something. And if we're doing heavy engine work, why shouldn't it even be higher than that? Where's the shame in saying this is a job that's going to provide us, it's all sexy. It's got this large ticket attached to it. But when you drill down, when you do the homework, like Bob tells you, when you're doing gross profit dollars per hour, and you realize that you're married to this vehicle for 2 years out, every time this check engine light comes on, well, you guys put my motor in. That's time that you can't get back. And so you have to account for that right at the beginning of this. And so that's why you have to have a higher labor rate. for heavy, for diesel, for electrical, for diagnostics. And by the way, when you're doing research on these vehicles, how come an attorney can charge $200 to do research for you? Research. But we can't do that, pulling up diagnostic information? What the hell's wrong with us?
You know, it's Bill, you're so bang on with this thing. And, you know, it comes back down to understanding who you are and what you are. And if you're running your business based on price when it comes to your labor rate, you're making a big mistake. I'll put this statement out, and my clients, to them, I sound like a broken record. You name to me every single independent shop that you know that went bankrupt for charging too much.
Yeah.
Send me the list, will you?
Yeah. I mean, I think about the time I take when we get a client in for the first time, and it might be a father and son. Carm, we talked about this before, many times before, where I try to say to them, this is not your problem. You have a car. This is your son's problem. Get your son involved, get your daughter involved. We start a relationship on that basis. Who would want to fire me for a $20 gap in this? You know, this one story I told about to Carmen years ago. I went to this it was like AT&T was running this seminar or something, but there was this guy in the room, and he was talking about a towing company out in Arizona. This company was the biggest towing company, the busiest and the most expensive in town. And the calls would go like this. Somebody would call up and say, Bob, how much is it going to be for my tow? And you'd say, you know, $80. He'd say, well, $80, I can get this done. I get just call 3 other places and they're $60. This is what they tell him. They said, let me tell you, Bob, this is what we do for this $20. Because we've just established that you're willing to pay $60 for this. So all I have to worry about is that $20 gap. So this is what he says. He says, when we get out there, please know that all of our drivers have been with us for over 10 years. All of them are drug tested. All of them go to training every year. They do this, and they're all certified by the National Association of Towing Operators or whatever. We will be there within 20 minutes or the tow is free. And considering the fact that you've probably been waiting out there wilting on the road for about an hour and a half now, when we get out there, we realize how hot you're going to be. So we're going to have a bunch of drinks for your ice cold refreshments for your enjoyment so that you're not so uncomfortable sitting in the truck. Now, who in their right mind is going to say, oh, you know what, let me call this other place here because I can save $20. You know what's going to happen is you call that place up and the guy that you called that you said no to is going to say, oh, you came crawling back to me like the dog that you are. You know what? I told you 45 minutes. Now it's going to be an hour and 45 minutes. Why? Because that's the way I run my business because I'm the cheapest guy in town.
It's happened to me. Bill, thank you so much for your perspective. Social media has lit up based on everything you did. And thank you for being here. And please stick around. Bob, we look down the road. Labor is a component of the success of our industry. Do you have any advice?
Yeah, labor is the future focus where you have to be. And as Bill is explaining, your labor rate reflects the value proposition you bring to the table. So it means that you have to learn how to educate your clients on a consistent basis every time you're seeing them. And remember, you are working on their vehicle to make sure it is safe, reliable, and efficient. Those 3 key components is what we do. And we have to educate our clientele as to that skill level that we have to bring to the table. And when you're moving from 100 million lines of software in an average vehicle today to 500 million lines of software by 2023, 2024, they're predicting, you're now dealing with a solid computer platform that you've got to be fully aware of. And if that check engine light doesn't go off, man, you're in trouble with the client. So you've got to know what you're doing. And look at how we're moving forward, even understanding calibration today on a vehicle. And there will be a separate labor rate for that as well. I'm developing it right now because the skill level to be able to take off a bumper or a windshield and put it back together and have all the sensors work properly is a skill and it's going to grow. So we are in a knowledge-based business. And you might have heard me say it before, the trade days are done. This is a true profession today. And our profession is reflected through our labor component in your billed hours per RO. Now, just Carm, if you don't mind me, I'd like to go back to that cost per build hour number too. Is that such a powerful number? Is once you know it and understand it, you can actually calculate how much you are going to net on a repair order before you close it off. So, all you're doing is taking all your commodities, multiply it by the gross profit that you made or gross profit percentage you made on those commodities, add to that the total labor you build. Now you got the total gross profit dollars of that repair order. From that, you take the number of hours you build and multiply it by the cost per build hour and subtract it from that gross profit to see how much you're going to net. And if you're not netting 20%, you want to know that before you close it off. And if you have a pure labor job, pure labor, don't work on your labor rate. You don't even quote a labor rate. You quote the job. And what you're doing is taking your cost per build hour plus 20%, because that's what you want to net. And that's times the number of hours you're going to be doing. So a simple example, my cost per build hour is $150. I have a 10-hour job. No parts involved, no nothing, just pure labor. So what do I do? 150, 20% of that, another $30. So I take 180 times my 10 hours. I'm quoting $1,800 for the job.
Bob, thank you for that. I want to do a quick timeout. We're going to come back and we're going to tuck this thing, put a pin in it. Shopware wants to remind you, stop spending time chasing customers. Shopware's leading shop management system is helping shops just like yours generate more profit per ticket with less time on the phone. Break away from your legacy system and implement a completely contactless workflow today. Get started at getshopware.com/Carm. And hey, does your social media truly represent your shop, or is it just plain vanilla, generic? Well, it doesn't have to be that way. The experts at Shop Marketing Pros listen and create great social content that connects you to your community on the web at shopmarketingpros.com. Hey, this was, I'd have to say, just what I was looking for. And then we threw Bill as the cherry on the sundae.
You mean the dynamite stick?
Yeah. So I would really, there's been some great chatter. Thank you so much for, look at my friend Dwayne. Bob, you're spot on. We are a profession. I think you've coined that word, we're not a trade anymore. We're a profession. Cars have more code than the space shuttle. And again, Brian, I think it may be you. There's an awful lot of back chat on that. So if you're not on, please keep your mic on mute. Thank you for that. So look at guys, let's put a bow in it. Brian, I'm going to let you have the first word. Bill, I'm going to give you, just a few minutes, Bill, because I know you can go on for 2 hours. And then Bob, I'm gonna let you sum up this. The reason we're here, labor rate's a function of the business, not the market. I think we nailed it. And if we didn't nail it, I think it taught someone that they had to get a yellow pad, a piece of paper, and a pen out in the calculator and open those financial statements and do the damn math, right? And look at your business from a completely different perspective. Brian, I'll give you your last word here, my friend.
Yeah, I just want to say, I really appreciate what both Bob and Bill had to say. I think they're both spot on. We tend to undervalue ourselves, and we work hard. We put a lot into what we do. We got to hold our head high. We should be able to charge the prices that we need to be able to charge to like Bob said, to be able to provide a professional income for ourselves and for our employees. And, we have to believe in that, and we have to understand that, this is the future. Labor is going to be the main way. It's don't undervalue yourself. Put in the work. We put in the time. We deserve to get paid for it.
Thanks so much for being here, Brian, Chief Strategist at Net Results. We did a great podcast together at Vision. He's a process and systems guy, and we're going to have him back here soon. I can't remember, Brian, if we're doing a town hall together or we're doing my schedule. I have so many different shows going on, right? And but anyway, he's a process system guy. We're gonna take advantage of him. Bill, I'll give you your last word, my friend.
I don't dare disagree with anything that Mr. Greenwood or Mr. Gillis would ever say. The only thing I would add to this is that the one thing that changed in my mind in the last year or two is that I no longer believe that we're just a labor factory. I think that you can easily pigeonhole yourself into thinking, well, all I gotta do is bust out a bunch of labor, have guys with a bunch of gaudy labor hours, and you think, I'm still not making enough money. Well, it's because you don't have a commensurate amount of parts that you're selling with the job. If you don't have a proper mix of parts that you're selling that don't cost me any extra labor, that don't cost me any extra parts, don't have, there's no workers' comp, there's no extra costs with that part. And that technician, if you force the issue with the customer, if you no longer install used parts, and if you no longer burn yourself and you're installing quality parts, you no longer have that issue to deal with. It's much more predictable, and you sell those parts along with that job. You're sourcing them because the technician also has to pick these parts. They have to know what parts to pick. And so is it any wonder why we get into trouble when the customer is picking the parts?
Yeah, right.
Got it, my friend. Bob, are you up for a great summary here, my friend?
Quality is everything, and that's the business we're in, quality parts. And Bill's absolutely right. I'm assuming that you buy quality parts and always use quality parts. Why would you not? You either have a customer business or a client-focused business. I'm encouraging you to go client-focused. That is your whole business of what you're about. Trying to please everybody who walks through the door is a big mistake. You have to define your business and what you are, and your labor rates will reflect your quality, your knowledge. And keep in mind, it's just not just paying yourself and your team a professional wage. We also have to look at the reinvestment we're going to be making moving forward in equipment, in software, and education or training. It's going to be continuous now, and we've got to have the dollars to be able to support that. And a lot of that training and education will be taking place during business hours, which means I've got to learn how to schedule the business properly versus after hours when my team is supposed to have a life outside of business as well. Big discussions, a lot to discuss, but I'm encouraging you. Please pay attention to your numbers, break them out properly, and study your math.
Bob Greenwood, AMAM, President and CEO of the Automotive Aftermarket E-Learning Center and respected business coach in North America. And thanks, Bill, for coming in. And I like this whole guest host idea. We keep him in the background, and he's writing all these notes. He's ready to pounce. And then we bring him in about 25 minutes in, right? What do you think, guys?
And Carm, to bring in Bill. I mean, this is just awesome.
I outbid Buckley. Buckley was paying 20. I told Carm, I said 25. And he went for it.
Oh,
he's cheap.
Well, that's a thought. And Greg said it was a great show, gents. So thank you for being here, everyone. A lot of great chatter on Facebook. I'll see you for sure live again next Tuesday at aftermarketweekly.com, where I have a guest host again, and we're doing another great shop tour. So much appreciation for everyone to hang on that really fun 25-minute fast-paced magazine show, aftermarketweekly.com. Hey, have a great weekend, everyone.